Welcome on, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and just kind of hear more about your story and everything like that. So let's just jump right in. Tell everyone that's listening just a little bit about you and your background, how you started in photography, just kind of like all the things. Wherever it leads you, we're along for the ride. So
Okay, well, everybody hold on tight because I talk a lot. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, my name is Lindsay. A lot of people know me as Miss Miller or Miss Miller's Photography on social media. I answer to either, totally fine. So, I have been a photographer full time since 2015, which happened by accident. It was never even on the radar of possible like careers. I was never like interested in it. But it's funny because like as I tell people my story and I look back more on my life, I'm like maybe there were possible signs that like pointed to it, but I was just like so set on like one specific career path that I wasn't looking for like maybe what my path was supposed to be. So like I said, I've been full time since 2015, and I've been specializing in weddings since 2000, like the summer of 2017 and the fall, then going in. Like I started shooting my first weddings in like 2017, kind of got my first big breaks then. And then by the time 2018 happened, it was just like full time doing all of the weddings, all of the things, and just been going full throttle ever since. So basically, a little bit about me that kind of like adds to my story a little bit and how I got here. So I am a fifth generation. I like to say I'm the farmer's daughter, but I'm a fifth generation beef producer. It's kind of just like funny how my entire like family dynamic works. My like for generations and generations, my family has been farming and raising cattle in northern Colorado around the Weld County, Greeley, Colorado area. I think on my dad's side, they first like started farming and raising cattle in 1919. On my mom's side, it's a little bit more like foggy because I don't know, I guess it would be her grandma, my great grandma. My mom's gonna listen to this and probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know, I wasn't alive. She actually was a sugar beet digger as a child in Brush, Colorado, which is just a little bit east of us. So I'm like not quite sure when the timeline on that was, but basically I have farming and raising cattle on both sides of my family. Grew up, my grandpa he owns a cattle feedlot where we raise beef cattle. We're kind of like a middleman feedlot, so we get them from like the ranchers and then we sell them off to finishing feedlots. So we kind of like are the middle of the way feedlot. And by we, I mean my grandpa, my dad, and my brother, not me at all. So don't be fooled by that. And then I'm always around, but I don't actually work for my grandpa. I have my own cattle. I do my own thing. And then when I say I'm the farmer's daughter, it's because my dad would much rather be in the cab of a tractor and growing corn and alfalfa and sorghum and all that stuff. He is not super big on the cattle. He's not a cowboy by any means, but definitely he's been around cattle his entire life and he has to take care of them because my grandpa has them. So he's been stuck with the cattle his whole life. And so I grew up basically, my parents did not send me to preschool when I was a little kid. My mom, I'm the oldest kid in my family. There's only two of us, me and my brother. But I just got set into a cab of a tractor when I was a little kid, and I didn't actually go to preschool, which my parents discovered that wasn't like the best like educational start in life. So then my little brother, he's like the smart one in the family, he got sent to preschool because like when I got into kindergarten and I like didn't know anything, they were like, okay, maybe that wasn't like the best choice. But anyways, so basically raised in the cab of a tractor. I remember like my parents, I don't know where I got it actually, but I had like a little bucket hat that was like faux cow print, looked like a Holstein, and then I had like this reversible leather jacket, and I had to be like I don't know, 5 or 6 at the time, and it was like a reversible leather jacket that was like black on one side was the leather side, but when you flipped it out and reversed it, it was that same like faux cow print. It was like really fuzzy. And so whenever we'd be like feeding cows in the winter, my dad would be like forking hay, I would crawl around on my hands and my knees and I would like moo at the cows at the feed bunk. And I was convinced they would accept me as one of their own. So the obsession with cattle kind of started then. And I always begged my parents for a horse. And I think that's how the cattle obsession got even more extreme because my dad's mom, she has horses and always has. But my dad does not like horses. So I was given things like sheep and goats and what I thought at the time was mini cows, but apparently they were just cattle that were stunted at growth. And my dad got them at the sale barn super cheap. I don't know. So, I mean, I remember one Easter, I actually got what I thought was a mini Hereford. And I was super young, like elementary school. And I got this for Easter. And I just found out like a year ago. Like I'm 28 years old. And I found out when I was 27 that this thing wasn't a true mini Hereford. Because I was talking to my dad one time about it. And I'm like, yeah, that mini Hereford we used to have that you got me. And he's like, what mini Hereford? And I'm like, I don't know. I think its name is like Angel or something. He's like, oh, no, that thing wasn't a mini Hereford. That was just some bum calf I got at the sale barn. Like that thing was just a piece of crap. Like, so I thought that I thought it was a mini Hereford. But anyways, been around cattle, farming and ranching my entire life, just kind of like developed an obsession with it. And then I remember I was not really big on like sitting in the cab of a tractor. Wasn't my favorite thing in the world to do all summer or all spring. Let me sound like an actual farmer's daughter here. All spring. The tractor driving, that can stay to my dad and my brother. I always like to joke around and say that I was my dad's firstborn son in a way. Not that I was raised to be a boy, but I really wanted like not the Barbie dream house, but the Barbie dream horse stables. They came out with those. And like I really wanted that really bad for Christmas. And Santa, which turns out is my parents, Santa brought me a loader, like a full, like a big, I don't know what size of toy this is called. But instead of the Barbie dream stables comes complete with horses, I got a loader that like came with like this little thing. And like my dad was so excited. And this is pre my brother being born. And he was so excited. There's like pictures my mom took for the scrapbook. And he's like got me in his lap. And they're like, you know, I'm like trying to open this and it's a loader. And the look on my face is just like, oh no. Like, and I know what a loader is because like I live on a farm. I know what a loader is. We have them. And I'm like, where's the dream stable? I wanted the horse dream stable. I don't know where it's at. And then that loader later in life became my little brother. So thank God he came along because I finally started to get the Barbie stuff once my brother was born. So
You
anyways,
literally were like the epitome of a firstborn daughter on a ranch because I'm pretty sure the
yes.
exact things happened to me too. Like I didn't start getting my Barbie dolls or anything like that until my brother was born. And before that, I think it was actually my dad's hand-me-down loader that he had when he was a kid that he gave to me for Christmas one year. And I think it's literally an exact replica of the story that you just shared. So you're not alone there in the firstborn daughters getting almost treated like the sons should have been.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like, it's not like my parents, like, raised me to be a boy or anything. It was just, like, we were farmers and I was the first kid. And, you know, it kind of, the generations, it's going to fall to somebody. So you better learn how to drive a loader. I can proudly say that I'm not the loader driver. Nothing's wrong with being the loader driver. I can start the loader and I can that's not me. So kind of just touching on that, like, the way I said it's kind of funny is like my grandparents have always had cattle and they've had the farm. So we grow all of our own. And again, I say I feel like I've contributed to this business as a family because I was like basically forced to work in it as a child. So I say we, but it isn't actually we anymore. I have my own stuff. But we would grow all of our own food. So the feed, the silage corn, the alfalfa, all of that, we'd grow that for our cattle at the cattle feedlot and for our cow-calf operation. And so my dad really likes the farming side of it. My grandpa and my grandma were more into like the cow side of it. And then me and my brother came along. I, of course, was walking around like a Holstein. with my little outfit on, and we had all black Angus cows, so I don't know what I was thinking. They'd never seen a Holstein in their life, so what is this thing mooing at us? And like I had the moo mimicked perfectly to sound like a baby calf, so they would like take me in as their own. So my brother came along, and he just loves the tractors and all of that, so it kind of really gave me a chance to fall in love more with the cattle and all that side of things. And so when I would be riding in the cab of the tractors with my dad, and it got to the point where me and my brother were both getting big enough, it was getting a little crowded. One of the farms that we leased, the lady who owned it with her husband, like they owned the farm ground and we just leased it to grow the corn on there. She actually had like a giant, like I'm not in the lamb industry, so I don't know what it would necessarily be called, but she had like a big cow calf operation, but they were sheep. So she had a bunch of like lambs in that respect. So this lady, her name was Joanne, and she probably had like 200 head of ewes that she would have lamb out, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So whenever we would have to do field work, or in the summer we'd be irrigating, my dad would always drop me off at Joanne's house that was on the bottom end of the field. He'd be like, just stay there and annoy her for a little bit. And so I started to I was always out there looking with the sheep. And then I think it was probably like 2 or 3 years before I was like eligible to like actually show like in Pee Wee and like the fair and stuff. Joanne gifted me some bottle lambs to take care of. And my dad was just thrilled, as I'm sure you can imagine, taking care of bum lambs. And I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And they were not show quality lambs whatsoever. They were just like raised for their wool or their meat or whatever. I don't really know. I just got the lambs. I didn't really care. And I just thought this was the greatest thing ever. So I spent a lot of summers with Joanne and all of her sheep, and it was just so cool. And then of course I had some of her lambs that she would give me. And of course, like if they were wethers and stuff, my dad would take them to the sale barn when they were like old enough and all this, that, and the other, but at least I got to like raise them and start to do that. So inside our little pasture out at my house, I had what I thought was a mini Hereford named Angel, but she was not a mini Hereford. She's a sucky calf from the sale barn. And then I had my sheep. And at the time, my mom was working as an extension agent at what would she be called? An extension agent at the extension office? I don't know. Basically, she worked for the Weld County Fair and for the Weld County Extension Office, which is our county here that I live in Colorado. And once I was old enough, I was like, okay, I definitely know that I want to show animals. And so when I presented these facts to my parents, I was like, I want to show animals. And the first thing, keep in mind, my dad, he's the farmer. He is a farmer. He just has to take care of cows because my grandpa has cows. And he knows a lot about cattle, but it wouldn't be his first choice. As a career, he would much rather just have the tractors and the farmland, right? He's probably going to listen to this today. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I know it's true, okay? And so anyways, I was like, I want to show livestock. And I would have been like Pee Wee age, wouldn't even been like a junior. And so anyways, my dad's first words are, and keep in mind, this would have been like in like 2004 or 5, so it's not even on the spectrum it is now with like the fitting and everything. But he's like, we are not showing cattle. Absolutely not. I think his exact words were, I'm not having an air-conditioned barn for a calf. I think that was his exact words. And no hate out there to all of my friends who show club calves. Like, you guys do a great job. But my dad, raising commercial cattle at a feedlot, he was like, no, absolutely not. That's not happening. And also the price of one of those, he was like, absolutely not. No. And so just the idea of having to fit one, feed a calf like sweet feed and stuff instead of just like silage corn, he was like, oh no. And so my parents, they talked about it and they decided, since I already had a little bit of background in sheep, from the bum lambs I had raised, they were like, we're going to let you show club lambs, which I'm sure they thought was like the lesser of the options. But, a couple show lambs down the road, they figured out these things they're not as expensive as a club calf, but in the terms of a sheep, like the inflation on a club lamb is a lot compared to what you can buy one at the sale barn for. So I started by showing club lambs, and got to goats, and eventually I thought I could work my way into cattle, but it never did. So I ended up just showing the lambs. So, anyways, people listening are probably like, lady, this is a long story on how you became a photographer, but I swear it's all very important. I come full circle in life, okay? So everybody just hold on tight.
She did warn you in the beginning that, like, buckle up.
Yes.
Like, y'all knew what you were getting into with this episode. Yes.
There was a disclaimer. Keep in mind, I am self-employed. I sit in this house all day with my dog. So when I get a chance to talk, like I have to have some sort of social interaction. So anyways, so I started showing club lambs, did that for a few years. And this is where we start to come full circle just a little bit. This is just a little blip. I won't go full on to the story, but actually through showing livestock is how I met my husband. And when I say I met my husband, I mean I noticed my husband. My husband did not notice me. So there was that. Actually, grand scheme of things, as a kid, keep in mind, I was like a really little kid when I first like saw Tucker, who is my husband. If you don't follow me, you don't know, Tucker is my husband. And so then like later on in life, I really schemed it well. And like I didn't have the guts to send Tucker a friend request on Facebook like in 2010. So I friended his dad on Facebook, who was the announcer and on the fair board for all of our livestock shows. So I mean, I really planned it out, like full stalker, full creep. I was like, if I become friends with the dad, I will be able to infiltrate the family and become one. So
your plan worked out really well. Like this master plan was perfect.
I know. It started at 8 years old. 8 years old is when it started. I mean, I planned that sucker out. So we're good. But you guys, anybody
later,
listening
you're doing great.
Yeah, people who think that they're never going to find their significant other, like just have faith. Because keep in mind, this plan started when I was 8 years old, probably sent his dad a friend request when I was 14 to 15 years old, which out loud sounds a little creepy, I get that. But then Tucker finally found out who I was and messaged me on Facebook without knowing me when I was 20 years old. So you do have to wait. If you're going to use this method, I'm not saying it's flawless. You do have to wait. How long did that take? About 10 to 12 years, we want to say. So, I mean, if you're looking to have kids, this is not the best method if you're already in your late 20s. I will say that. You have to start it young. So, anyways, back to the story. So through showing livestock, I met my husband, but that's not important to the photography story. Just forget that for a second. So, anyways, then I started showing livestock, but at the same time, and anybody who follows me on social media knows this, my family is super into sports, extremely into sports. And any sport. I mean, even when the Colorado Avalanche were in the Stanley Cup, my parents, one time I called them and I was I need to ask them a question. My mom's like, I can't talk right now. I'm watching the Avs. I'm like, do we even like hockey? I'm confused. Why do you care about the Avs being in the Stanley Cup? So when I say that they like all sports, they really do. So kind of around the time I have been showing lambs for quite a few years. I was never going to win Grand Champion Market Lamb, but I always was at least placing in the top 3 of my class. And so I really, really enjoyed and loved showmanship. And I always tell my husband, we always have competitions on it, even though it's not currently happening. I'm like, look, buddy, every time I stepped into a show ring, didn't matter if it was a national show, the state fair, the county fair, or jackpot, I never got less than reserve grand champion showman, all right? So I'm talented in that department. So I was very good at showmanship. And the last year that I showed lambs actually was the first year I went to National Western Stock Show, and I ended up getting reserve champion showman for my age division. And then after that, I hung it up because I was also competing in club volleyball on a national level too. And it kind of got to the point where my parents were like, you got to pick one or the other. We can't do both. And at the time, keep in mind, this would have been 2008, 9, it's not recently. I didn't know that you could go to college through being involved with the livestock industry, I feel like it's so much more talked about now that you can judge, you can go on a judging scholarship, all these people, on the rodeo team, a lot of different things that are involved in the livestock industry. But I thought my one ticket to college was going to be playing volleyball. And so I was like, you know what? I do want to go to college. I really know I need to go to college because I knew in the back of my mind I wanted to be a large animal veterinarian and I needed to get a scholarship in order to go to college. So I was like, I'm going to play volleyball. I'm not going to show lambs anymore. So that's when my livestock career kind of stopped. And just really, we still lived on the farm. We still, my dad still did all that. And then it got to a point when I was in high school. And I say a lot of the stuff that happened in this age of my life really kind of like prepared me for owning a small business because growing up, remember I said I did not go to preschool and I sat in the cab of a tractor, was not the brightest kid at my school. I didn't do the best. Let's just say that C's and D's were a regular occurrence on my report card. And I was just like every stereotypical thing about being a jock was me. I am it. I'm not saying jocks aren't smart, but that's like the stereotypical people think that. And so when I got into high school, I started varsity volleyball as a freshman at a school that was really good at volleyball. And then my parents decided to make the move for me to go from a small town school to a bigger school that was closer to Denver, Colorado, which was a 5A school, which is like the biggest classification, most competitive classification we have for high school sports here in the state of Colorado. And when I moved schools where everybody didn't know who I was, and I went from having like 80 kids in my graduating class to 800, and nobody knew who I was, I couldn't just get away anymore with like not doing my homework and just like the teachers knowing I'm on varsity volleyball, so they better pass me or we're losing the game sort of deal. And that was like the biggest wake up call in my entire life. And while it was really hard as like a 14, 15-year-old to like make that change and go from everything you've known your entire life, we moved away from the farm, we moved into town, which like the first month of us living in town, it was like, who are these people? They're yelling, they are loud, they're always running around. Like we're used to having acres to like exist on, and now we have like a little house in a cul-de-sac, and like it was very strange, and like I had no idea how the world worked outside of my small farming community basically. And no hate to anybody who doesn't ever like get out of their small town, nothing along those lines, because it's difficult, it's very hard. But had I never done that, I don't think I would be like in the position that I am today with my business or my career. So anyways, I changed schools. It was really hard. I basically went from being a C and a D student. I remember the first time I had like a assignment due for school. I didn't do it because it was the night of a game, and keep in mind volleyball is a fall sport. So like it's early on in the school year. And this is a new school, new teachers, nobody knows who I am. And the teacher was like, and where's your biology assignment? I told my teacher I did not do my assignment. She was like, it doesn't matter that you're on the team. Doesn't matter if you guys had a varsity volleyball game, you got to do your assignment. And basically I went from being a C and a D student who didn't care all the way up until when I graduated high school, I was on National Honor Society and I was straight A student, almost a 4.0. I mean, there are certain things you can't shake from freshman year. Some of those C's and D's, they still impact you later on in your academics. But I ended up winning like academic scholarships. I went to college to play volleyball. It was the whole thing. My life was going great. I was like, what could possibly go wrong? And we had moved away from the farm. So we were away from the farm for about 4 years. My family made so many sacrifices for me so that I could play volleyball and that we could do these different things for me. And I'm so thankful to them for all that. Especially my little brother, he was the real champ, real MVP, because basically we moved school. So he got ripped from everything that he knew and loved. And this is where Lindsay wants to go. So this is what we have to do. And so once I graduated high school and I went to college, then my parents moved back to the farm and they took my brother back to his normal environment, which was back here in our small town. And my dad went back to working full time for his parents again on the feedlot and the farm. And my brother was also starting to kind of like work for my grandparents after school. I was in college. It was a whole thing. So I kind of wasn't involved in that. So I'd been away from the farm life, agriculture for about 4 years because my school was such a inner city school, big giant 5A school. They didn't even have FFA. Like it wasn't, you had to get on a bus in the middle of the day and drive to a different neighboring school in order to participate in FFA. And I was like, I'm good. I'll just stay here for the day. So then I actually got hurt playing college volleyball, and I don't want to say I was forced to hang it up early, but kind of if I wanted to walk by the time I was 50 years old, I needed to stop playing. And I majored in biology, minored in chemistry, and it was the emphasis in animal science when I was going to school because I still knew that I wanted to be a veterinarian. However, sometimes in athletics, you can't pick a school based on their academic programs. You have to kind of pick a school based on where you can go to play. So the best thing was that I majored in biology, minored in chemistry, and they called it emphasis in animal science, whatever they want to say that means. So now when people ask me, like, what classes did you take to become a photographer? I'm like, organic chemistry? I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So
nothing creative at all.
Yes. I remember actually for one of my electives or whatever, it's been so long since I've been in college. Actually, fun story, college dropout. We were here. It's like I'm the overachiever of the family. So I remember I had to take like an art history class and I was so upset. I'm like, why would I even need this? I don't need this. So I was very upset. But I ended up getting hurt playing college volleyball. There was no point for me to be at the university that I was at anymore because, like, I'll be honest, I was just there to play sports and get my education. I wasn't super in love with the school. I had a few really good friends that I had made there, but it wasn't enough to keep me far away from my family. So I moved back home, came back to the farm, and I was still going to school. I transferred to a closer school that I could drive to and from my parents' house. And my brother was playing sports at the time. He was playing high school football. His football team was really good. They made it all the way to the state championship that specific year that I came back home. And I remember my mom, she got a DSLR camera for Christmas. I don't know why this woman got a DSLR camera for Christmas, because even to this day, if I like set it up, no hate, Mom, if you're listening, but even if I set it up and I'm like, just press the button, this is what we want you to shoot. Just press it ends up half of the sky, the horizon is crooked, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, Amanda. And so I don't know why she got one, but me being the control freak daughter that I am, I was like, just give me the camera, Mom. I will figure it out. I'll figure out how to, take the picture. She wanted pictures of my brother playing football. So of course, shout out also to being a biology major. And no offense to my teachers, my professors, but they didn't teach me anything. So I did a lot of YouTube University when I was in college. So I just started YouTubing how to work a Nikon D3200. And since we were at the feedlot, I got 3,000 head of cattle just constantly running around me. And I'm like, well, we better just practice on these crazy things. So I just started taking random pictures of the cattle. At the time, my brother and I had tamed down one of the steers. It was like a brockle-faced steer, and my brother called it Pee-wee. And so my brother would go out and do photo shoots as a 17-year-old with the steer named Pee-wee. We would like just do stupid stuff like that. Everybody listening, I swear this story is almost over. Almost. We're near the end. Full circle moment. Okay, so where were we? We leave the farm. We go do the college thing, the volleyball thing, get hurt, come back to the farm. My mom gets a camera. She wants to take pictures of my little brother's football games. And by little brother, I mean my 6'4" little brother, who was like 17 at the time. And I started taking pictures. I was practicing on the cattle. I literally still to this day on my personal Facebook page, by the way, nobody send me a personal Facebook page friend request because I will not accept it. That's creepy. If you want to follow me, please follow me on Miss Miller's Photography. Do not send Lindsay Miller a friend request, please. It's so weird. I love you all, but like that's for my grandma, not for everyone else. I'm not even friends with my grandma on Facebook. How bad is that? So she sent me friend requests, let me tell you.
That is so funny. Even if you're Lindsay's grandma, you're not allowed to be her Facebook friend.
Only OGs, only people from 2010. Everybody else, you're out. And I've made the mistake before of like friending my clients on Facebook, and I really wish I would not have, so I don't do that anymore. So only the OGs are allowed to be my friend on personal Lindsay Miller Facebook. But anyways, on Lindsay Miller's personal Facebook account, I made an album. It was like my first photo album I created ever since I stopped playing volleyball. It was like dead to the world after I quit playing volleyball. And then I created this album, and I called it Life on the Farm, because like one of my other personal albums was called like Life 365 Days. It was brilliant. I thought I was going to take a picture for 365 days, and I only took like 70 pictures. But that was pre-photography era. But anyways, I uploaded this album on my personal Facebook page. It was just of all the pictures of the cattle that I had been practicing. Looking back on those photos now, they're horrendous. Please do not look at them. They're not good by any means. But it was a way for me to learn the camera. And what I was saying before we had technical difficulties, is that apparently you, as like a 20-year-old college-aged girl, cannot go to 17-year-old high school boys football games and go down on the field with a camera and just take pictures of them. You have to have what is called a CHASA pass, which is the Colorado High School Athletics Association. I get to decide like who's going to get to take pictures of the children taking sports. So I had to get in with our local Tribune, the Greeley Tribune, and I like basically made an arrangement with them. I was like, you give me a CHASA pass for media, because you can't just go to CHASA, the Colorado High Schools Athletic Association. You can't just be like, hey, I'm a photographer, I want a CHASA pass. That's not how it works. They're very selective about who they give them to. And so I made an arrangement with the Greeley Tribune. I was like, I will give you all the photos, which is a deal for them now that I realize how expensive photos are. I was like, I will give you all of the photos from the football games. Because like I said, my brother was on a really good football team at the time that made it all the way to the state championship. So like they wanted that coverage. They needed that coverage. And then all of the local schools that we were playing, they also needed the coverage from them. So not even if they didn't want my brother's school pictures, when we played like Eaton or somebody, which is a rival school, they would want the pictures of their quarterback. So I'm just out here taking a bunch of really good pictures of all these football players and just giving them to my Tribune for free. I can't believe I did that, just to get a stupid little CHASA pass. I hope my brother knows how much work I did for him so he could get some stupid football pictures. And so I was like, wow, this sports photography thing, this could actually be like a career. This could be a job. Because I was taking some banging photos. I don't know if that's a cool thing to say anymore. I don't know all the lingo that kids use. My age shows. But I was taking some really good photos. And I didn't know at the time, but apparently they tell me that taking fast-paced action shots in the dark underneath the Friday night lights is like apparently the most difficult type of photography to do. Compared to like wedding photography that's in okay, we won't say weddings. Back that up. I don't need anybody in my industry to a session in the middle of the day with perfect lighting. You can have your ISO like ISO 200, okay? Apparently shooting in at dark at a football game is really difficult compared to shooting some people standing still in the middle of the day. So, I was taking football pictures and really, really got good at working my camera because that was really difficult to do that. And I just practiced on the cattle at the feedlot. And then people started asking me if I could take their kids' senior pictures. I'm like, is your kid a cow, heifer, or steer? Because that's what I know how to take pictures of. And football. Like I said, I'm basically a boy in my family. I'm football and cows. That's what Lindsay takes pictures of. All these other like photographers who are starting out, they're like, look at the ocean, look at the sky, look at this pretty flower. And I'm like, cows and football. Welcome to my page. So that's how it kind of all started. And just like snowballed very quickly after that. I'm not saying there's not people who don't make a living in sports photography, but all the 17-year-olds were screenshotting my pictures on my SmugMug account. And I'm sure you get this a lot in the livestock world too. No hate to anybody in the livestock world, but I've seen it. I see it happen to a lot of livestock photographers out there that travel around to shows. People will literally screenshot your images out of your SmugMug account or PicTime app, whatever else. I use SmugMug, so I don't really know what all the other ones are called. It has like your watermark literally on it that says don't copy or reproduce. And they screenshot it, and then you make no money, and then they have the audacity to like make it their profile picture with your watermark like across it. And you're like,
that is a red flag. Like if you send me a friend request on Facebook, or if you follow me on Instagram and you have a watermarked photo as your profile photo, no, gone, goodbye. I don't care who you are. Get out of here.
Even
with
your
that.
grandma.
Even if it was my grandma. Even if it was my grandma. Lindsay doesn't even have her grandma friended on Facebook, and she probably doesn't have a watermarked photo as a profile image.
Only the OGs are allowed. If you haven't been here since 2010, you ain't in. Get out of the club. I actually go through my friend requests, or not my friend requests, my friend list very frequently, and I like remove people out of there, which sounds so bad. But like, I feel like I'm very blessed to have a larger social media following. Now, nobody be like, bro, you don't have 1 million followers. I know I don't have 1 million followers. I know. But I have a larger number of people to talk to and to entertain on social media. So like my parents, they always make fun of me and they say that Lindsay and Miss Miller are two different people. So like Lindsay is very introverted, leave me alone, I'm a hermit sort of type of person. And Miss Miller is my extroverted, talks a lot, likes to entertain the crowd sort of deal. So like, if you've ever been unfriended by Lindsay Miller on Facebook, like don't take offense to it. I just can't mentally. When I switch from Lindsay to Miss Miller, like Miss Miller will entertain everybody. Lindsay only wants like 5 friends, and that's pushing it. So that's where we're at on Facebook. But anyways, everything just kind of started snowballing. And you know, when I first started photography, I thought that you had to shoot literally like anything and everything to be able to make money. My dad scared the crap out of me when I first was like, I think I'm not going to go back to college for a semester. And he was like, if you start flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, don't come crying to me. By the way, there's nothing wrong with flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. We all need a cheeseburger. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, imagine you were majoring in biology, minor in chemistry, and now your dad's telling you might work at McDonald's, and you're like, oh no, what have I done? So I literally just started taking like every single session. I mean, I shot everything from like 3-month-old little babies that would like pee all over all my props to livestock. I did like some bull sales. I was doing like basketball games, volleyball games, football games. I shot a wedding for $300. Those people got a steal. Congrats to them. I shot everything under the sun, basically, because I was like, I don't want to work at McDonald's. Oh no. By the way, nothing wrong with McDonald's. I love McDonald's. So not as good as Chick-fil-A, but we still need people to make our McDonald's hamburgers. I was just very scared. So it just kind of like, it's always, I feel like it's a whirlwind on how like, and all these photographers who were like, had been in the business for 10 years, like you have to, are you calling it niche or niche? What are you calling it in your world?
Niche.
Lauren? Okay. That's what I say too, but my mom says
I was going to say, if you're a niche person, get out of here. No.
Unfriended. So,
unfriended.
Yeah, I call it niche too. All these photographers are like, you have to niche down. And I'm telling you what, like 2015, 16, and 17, Miss Miller / Lindsay was like, I can do everything. I can do everything. I was wrong. I was dead wrong, let me tell you. So eventually I stopped shooting sports. That was like the first to go. Well, no, babies. Shooting babies was like the first to go. I was like, get out of here. not good with babies, so don't call me if you have
Peeing
baby
over all
photos
my
you want.
stuff.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck is this? Props to all you like newborn photographers out there who can deal with that, because I'm not for that. I can deal with calf scours on me. I can't deal with the baby peeing on my props and then put it in my washing machine. That's disgusting. That's your own baby. Like, we can put the calf poop in our washing machine, but I'm not putting your baby's pee in my washing machine. That is not going to happen. So then the next to go was sports photography. I did a little bit of the livestock shows, but I'm not Lauren. I couldn't deal with the screenshotting of my images. It was like sports photography. I was traumatized. Okay, I was like, I can't deal with this. I would go sit through a livestock show, and again, this would have been like in 2016, 17. I feel like livestock photography as a whole has come a long ways in the past, like really like 5 to 6 years. Like we've made like leaps and bounds. I'm not in it really anymore for like the show stock anymore. But it used to be that if you wanted to photograph like a jackpot or a smaller county fair, they'd be like, oh, we're not going to pay you, but you can sell the pictures. And I was like, cool, great, that's not a big deal. So then I'd spend like 3 days or 2 days, 3 days at a jackpot, because they'd have pigs and steers on one day and lambs and goats on the other day. And I'd spend all this time there and I'd sell like $80 worth of pictures. And I was like, by the time I shot it all, drove there, came home, edited it all, paid for the SmugMug account for it to be on, that is just not worth my time whatsoever. So leave that to the big guns, because I did not have the patience to break into that industry. I was like, nope, next. What's next on the to-do list?
Fully understand where you're coming from.
I'm sure there's still a lot of that, but I commend you for having the patience to do it, but it was just not for me. Actually, the best livestock show gig I actually ever had was I worked for another girl from my town. Her name's Kendall Reitzenstein, and she was a photographer. She's a like livestock judge now and was a judging coach. I don't know if she still is, but she was. Anyways, and so she asked me, because we used to play volleyball together growing up, and she's like, do you want to like second shoot for me at the fair? And she just cut me a check, and I just gave her my memory card after it was all said and done. I'm like, heck yeah, I could do this. But it was a one-time deal. So I couldn't really make a living off of that. And I was like, oh no, headed to McDonald's. Better get some more sessions booked. So then after that, I just kind of started like playing around, and what I really noticed what I was the best at was shooting. I shot a lot of seniors. I still shoot a lot of seniors. I don't really like advertise myself as a senior photographer. If for anybody, I feel like everybody listening to your podcast should know what I mean when I say senior, because they like know the photography industry, but I don't mean senior citizens. I mean seniors as in high school or graduating college seniors. I don't shoot
I've
senior
never
citizens
felt
either.
the need to specify that, but that makes a lot of sense now that you would maybe need to specify that you mean
I know.
People about to go into college, not people going into a nursing home.
Not senior citizens. We don't give a senior citizen discount here. I'm sorry. So, anyways, I still shoot a lot of seniors. I'm kind of like you in that sense, where we were talking that you rely on like the word of mouth. I don't necessarily like advertise or push a lot of like, oh, I do senior photography. People just kind of know. Or people, like a lot of kids will see my like stuff on TikTok, and they'll see that I do like weddings, and if they're in the area, they'll be like, hey, I know you shoot weddings, but like, I like your pictures, could you shoot my senior session? And I do, honestly, like I don't think I'll ever stop shooting senior sessions. Like I do enjoy them, and I really enjoy, like I always joke with my husband, I'm like, if we could just like adopt a kid that's like 12 years old, that'd be ideal for me. Let's just skip the peeing on things stage. Let's just skip all that.
We all know how Lindsay feels about an infant peeing on things.
So. Yes, not acceptable. Sorry. Thank you, next. And so, like I don't know. Even when I used to coach volleyball after I got done playing. I used to coach club volleyball too, and I really connected with like the older kids, like from like 15 and up. It was just really easy for me to connect with them and talk to them. And so like I like to shoot seniors, so I started shooting seniors. I do some families. The problem sometimes with families for me is some families have an infant baby, And it's not a big deal, but like I feel like the best people to photograph families with little babies and just newborns in general are like moms, people who have had babies. If you want me to photograph your cattle, I've had plenty of cattle. I can tell you how to do that. I know how to, I'm a certified cattle whisperer. I know how to communicate with them. That's fine. But your baby, your human baby, that's a no-go for me. I don't understand it. So a lot of families have like a newborn, and it's just kind of, it's not my forte. Leave that to the photographers who are moms. They're better at that than me. Or somebody's like, oh, we want to book a family session, and you thought the family session was for like 4 people, for like the mom and the dad and their kids, and then all of a sudden the whole entire extended family shows up at the location. You're like, whoa, this was not talked about or agreed upon. So you're just kind of like, this wasn't in the package price. And then like, you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be like, so those 12 people are going to have to go. They're going to have to book a separate session. So like, I kind of pulled back on families for a little bit because like the extended family sessions, it wasn't doing it for me. And I mean, I understand all families need their pictures, but that is a lot. That is a lot to do and take in all at once when people just like throw that on you without any forewarning. And then I kind of just started breaking into the weddings, and I shot all kinds of weddings. I mean, I shot urban weddings in downtown Denver. I told you guys I shot that wedding for like $300. That was my first wedding ever. And I started to notice that my work was always like shining the best, and I got the most traction on social media. And I wouldn't say this was long before the Yellowstone phase came out and everybody decided they wanted to be a cowboy. Like before Western was like cool, I would just get more positive feedback on my sessions, my weddings that were like more Western, ranch, rural type of feel. And I think that was because like those were the people I could connect more to. Basically, if I couldn't talk to the groom about football or cattle, I didn't really have much to say to them, which kind of sucked. But I feel like I could make like the grooms, because usually, I mean, not dogging on the guys, but sometimes it takes a while for guys, the grooms, the dads in the family, all this, that, the other. It takes a while for them to get warmed up in front of the camera, right? And so when I could just like immediately start talking to them about like, and I knew stuff. I'm like, oh, what do you guys pay for hay? Like, what do you pay per ton for hay in this area of the country? Sort of deal. And I could ask them those things. Like, I feel like they were more comfortable with me, and then we talk about like common knowledge, common interests, that sort of deal. And I just feel like everybody just does better when they can talk to people about stuff they actually can relate to and know about. So that's how I just ended up doing more of like the Western cowboy ranch type of stuff. And a large majority of my sessions and my weddings, people either have their cattle, they have their cattle dogs there, they have horses there. It's stuff that I know how to work with and is like what's important to me. And I feel like as a photographer, as long as you're taking pictures of things that are like important to you, then you can like bring out the best in your subjects, meaning your clients. You can bring out the best in your surroundings. Because a lot of people are confused. They're like, you are a Colorado photographer, yet half of your pictures are literally out on the plains. And these people, no offense, these people think I'm in Kansas or Nebraska. And I'm like, no, I live in Colorado. And
Ouch.
They're like, why don't you take pictures in the mountains? I'm like, because this is where these people's ranch is at, not in the mountains.
My clients don't live in the mountains. Sorry.
Yes. So really the only people that go to the mountains are the skiers. So I don't know what to tell you guys. So I've grown up and like there's nothing wrong with my family's cattle feedlot, but if you've ever been to a feedlot, it is not the most glorious place on the entire planet. It's not the most photogenic, as one would say. You gotta hide some, like not hide anything about the animals, but for example, like we have an old International 7 tractor that my great grandpa bought like brand new, like a million years ago, and like the windshield is like cracked on it. It doesn't start unless you like spray ether on it. It's a whole thing, and so I have to make sure that's like not in the background of any photos, right? And so I feel like learning how to like take pictures on a feedlot, you like learn how to make things that maybe weren't the most visually attractive bring out their unique beauty and things like that. So that's why I'm cool with shooting on the plains of Colorado and not in the mountains. But that's not to say if anybody doesn't have a ranch in the mountains, I wouldn't love to go there and shoot. Because I obviously would. That would make my life really easy. But still, that's where we're at.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, that was
A lot.
ordeal, a lot, but I love it. I'm here for it, and I hope that everyone else was along for that ride of like the entire synopsis of Lindsay's biography of how she became a photographer.
I don't even know what
Oh my gosh.
synopsis means.
Okay, see, I was a 4.0 student and like valedictorian of my class. So C's and D's got degrees when I got to college and stopped caring. But when I was in high school, I cared way too much probably. And yeah, I was crazy. And then I got to college and was like, oh, it's really not that deep. Like I just need to pass. Like no one really cares what my GPA is other than my scholarship people. And I just needed to keep it above like a 3.2. So I was like, I can do that. I get A's in my art appreciation class and we'll deal with the rest. My OChem, see, right. Like me, OChem, I literally picked a degree based off of what can I do in agriculture that transfers the most credits that I already have that I don't have to take OChem. That was literally my basis for picking my degree. So yeah, we're just differently gifted, which is completely great.
I was wanting to get into vet school, so I knew that I was in Alpha Lambda Delta when I was in college, which was like our honor society for our college. I don't know if that was like across others. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to other universities, to be honest. I did whatever's in front of me, basically. And so like I was getting straight A's in college, just basically YouTubing everything. Because I remember one time I went to one of my chemistry professors and I was like, I didn't really understand today's lecture. And he was like, it's in chapter 36 of your book. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and you can go to the library and get tutoring if you need more help than that. And I'm like, cool.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Super helpful.
So then I became a photographer. So I was like, all right, so that's not working.
I love it. So talk a little bit more about like your journey into focusing. I know you kind of touched on like you're niching down a little bit, but expand a little bit on like why weddings, your focus on weddings now. Like, are you still really wanting to do big weddings, or are you trying to transfer a little bit into like the elopement space, or where's that side of your business kind of going?
Okay, so how I got into weddings. Like I said, it was a kid that I went to high school with. He was a couple years older than me in school. And coincidentally, the first, him and his wife, they were my first ever clients that I did for like an engagement session. And like, it went fine. I didn't think there was anything that was like spectacular about it. And then after the engagement session, they really loved the engagement session. So they asked me if I would shoot their wedding. And I'd never shot a wedding. Fun fact for all the photographers listening out there, Lindsay Miller has never second shot a wedding in her entire life. And I have now done 6 years of wedding photography without ever second shooting a wedding. A lot of photographers like break into the wedding industry by like second shooting for a lead photographer. And if you're new to the photography industry at a wedding, you typically have your lead photographer, which is the person that the client's booked, and then they get what is called a second photographer. The second photographer usually is just like there for like backup / assistant / they kind of get like more of the candid photos per se, when the lead photographer is maybe doing like staged family pictures, that sort of deal. Mm-hmm. I have never second shot. Second shooting is like a way to just like get hours under your belt, weddings under your belt, kind of learn the ins and outs. And me being a crazy person, when these people asked me to shoot their wedding, I was like, yeah. And I remember because I went to school with the kid, so like I knew him on a personal level, and I was like, but if the pictures suck, you can't sue me. And he was like, oh yeah, we would never sue you. No, that's fine. And so like I was still so paranoid about it. I did not know what to charge. I mean, this was back in the day when I was like charging like, I think I was charging like $150 for like a normal session. And I always joke around because like my very first sessions I ever shot, they took like all day. Like all day. Like my clients' faces started like twitch because it was lasting so long and they like their smile was like stuck on their face. And I was also under this impression that like especially for senior sessions, that like every pose that we did had to be like at a different like background location type looking. So like let's say we're on somebody's farm shooting a senior session and I want to do one with like let's say we're shooting a guy's senior session because I shot mostly guys when I first started because like I shot my brother and all of his little friends, right? Did all of their senior pictures. So like let's say they're like crossing their arms and that's the pose. Like I'd have like a tractor behind them. And then if the next pose is gonna be like them and like the dude like crouch, like that dude crouch, you know what I'm talking about? I'm mimicking if like the visual ever gets put out there. So if you're seeing the visual, if you're watching this right now, I'm trying to demonstrate poses. They're not being demonstrated correctly. So like for the next pose, I'd be like, all right, let's go by this grain bin for this next pose. And every single different pose I put these people in, I had to have a different background. But anyways, I was charging like $150 for those sessions, which is a steal. And it was like lasting all day. And so when this guy asked me to do their wedding, I was like, don't sue me if they suck. It's not my fault. You're the one making your funeral. We're coming. This is you. You're doing this. I'm not a wedding photographer, never claimed to be. So that's on you, buddy, if I suck it up. And so I like Google template like a wedding contract. It had like 3 like things on it basically. And I'll always remember the first one. And it's actually really funny because I still have it in my wedding contract today. And it said if the photographer is like I don't have a legal mind, so I can't like word it correctly for you guys. So please don't take legal advice from me. But in layman's terms, basically it says if I'm there working for more than 4 hours, I will eat when the bride and groom eat at the reception. And if I'm not allowed to eat when the bride and groom eat at the reception, I will leave an hour early to obtain a meal for myself and my assistant. The very first wedding I shot, that was like the first provision in the contract. And like I downloaded this contract. Off Google, which that's probably illegal to be honest. I don't know. Again, I'm not a legal person. Don't take legal advice from me. And it's still in my contract today just because I think it's kind of funny. So it's still in my contract. It's the first provision in like my 75 provision page contract that I now have for my clients. Because if they're not going to let me eat, that's not okay. So I shot that wedding, and coincidentally, the wedding, it went really good. That wedding was also one of the first weddings that the venue that the couple chose to have it at. That was like one of their very first like weddings, if that makes sense. So it was my first wedding, it was the venue's first wedding, and coincidentally, it was the bride and groom's first wedding. They had never been married either. So it was just a first for all of us, honestly. And so the venue, like they were so excited to have these photos of a wedding at their venue. They like printed them when they made like the knot like profile and wedding wire profile. Those are like, I don't personally advertise on the knot or wedding wire, but that's like a place for like wedding vendors to advertise, right? They like used all my photos and all of us just kept saying Miss Miller's photography. So I would have people coming out of the woodworks that saw my pictures on the knot and wedding wire, and none of these were Western weddings whatsoever. And so I just got an influx basically of everybody wanting me to shoot their wedding. And all I had to show for it was one measly wedding that I shot for $300. And so that's kind of how I like broke into the wedding industry. It was completely unintentional. But it definitely beats having babies pee on all of your stuff. So just saying the truth.
I will take a mad mother of the bride any day over an infant peeing on my stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I also have
kudos to you newborn photographers, but not for me.
Yeah, I couldn't. And also newborn photographers, when I was really sucking it up at a few of my newborn sessions when I first started, and they were just like not turning out. I'm like, what? How are these babies looking so flawless, like little porcelain dolls in their pictures? I realized a lot of it has to do with like photoshopping and like airbrushing their skin. And that wasn't for me. That wasn't the life for me. I was like, I can't do this at all. And then they have to have their studio at like 100 degrees for the newborns, and they have to have white noise going. That's just too much for me. Too much. Count me out. I'll be at the wedding, sweating my butt off for 8 hours in the hot sun in the middle. You know what? Kansas, every time I've been to Kansas to shoot a wedding, I've almost died in like a national weather emergency.
I
So
remember when you were in Kansas shooting an engagement session in Manhattan, and that's when I still lived in Manhattan, and you got the tornado, or wasn't
the
it a
rain
tornado?
wrapped tornado, yes, a rain wrapped tornado. It actually
Yep.
damaged some of K State, I believe.
Yep. So I was living in Manhattan at the time, and it was a disaster. The tornado touched down like a few blocks away from our house. Like it was
Jeez.
terrifying and awful. And I remember you and Tucker being like balls to the walls, driving through this open field in the Flint Hills, like we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, and actually we weren't the ones driving. So what had happened was the guy and a girl were getting engaged. So the guy's name was Cody and the girl's name was Carly. And apparently Carly had followed me on social media for a while, and so it would always come up in conversation with her and her boyfriend, where she would always apparently, and this is I'm getting the story secondhand from the boyfriend, right? He emails me, and it was like I want to say he emailed me like May of the year prior to the whole entire engagement. He emailed me the May before. I don't remember. Half the time, all my years just run together. I don't even know what year we're living in because people are booking me for weddings in 2026, and I'm like, I don't know. I know that today is like Wednesday or something, and that's all I know. So I just people are like, "Where are you going this week?" I'm like, "A wedding. I don't know, somewhere. So we're going to a
Somewhere.
wedding. Yeah, what does it matter? Honestly, at this point, we're gonna be at a wedding. So it makes me sound like I don't enjoy going to weddings. I'm just saying I'm always going to a wedding or going out of state, so it's just all the same at this point. So the guy emails me like a year in advance. He emails me, he's like, my girlfriend really likes your pictures. She always talks about having you be her photographer, yada, yada, yada. And I would like to propose to her on June 19th. So he emails me in like May, and he tells me that that he wants to propose to her like on June 19th, 20th. I don't know. And it gave me about like 25 days to plan. And I tell this guy, I'm like, like June's a really busy month for me. Like in Colorado, that's like the busiest month of the year for weddings. But I was like, I'll try to make it happen. And like his responses, they weren't like rude by any means, but I could kind of tell he's like, how could you not make this happen? When it comes to realize, he meant June of the next freaking year. He booked me 13 months in advance to photograph this proposal. That was like, this girl don't know how lucky she is, because that is some major commitment on this fella's part.
Yeah, holy
So
cow.
eventually I figured out that he wasn't talking about June 20th in 25 days. He was talking about June 20th in 380 days. So got booked for that. And I always get so stressed out if I have to photograph like a proposal or something. And he was like texting me the night before. I remember Tucker and I actually, for people who follow me on Instagram, I had an entire debacle where I ended up with a pickup that was a total lemon. It was brand new, ordered it brand new, and then it became a lemon, so we couldn't drive it. I remember Tucker and I had to drive his mom's car to Kansas because like my pickup was an absolute lemon. It was in and out of the shop for warranty work. It had like 4,000 miles on it. Tucker's pickup is our ranch pickup that we use for like hauling hay and cattle. So we didn't really want to put the miles on it to drive all the way to the other freaking side of Kansas. And good thing we didn't, because if it would have got swept up in that tornado, we would have been out any vehicle to haul cows or hay with. So I remember we were like taking Tucker's mom's car there. We actually broke down in her car because her car, like something fell down out of the bottom of it. And I'm like we haven't even made it past the Colorado border yet to get into Kansas. Um, what's down there? Is it Burlington? Is Burlington by
Yeah,
Kansas?
Burlington.
Okay. So we were down by Burlington or on our way. We were going towards Colorado, all right, whatever that little town is called, and we just hear parts of the car dragging, basically on what is it, I-70 or I-80 that runs through Kansas?
I-70.
Okay, so we're on I-70 and we hear parts of the car dragging, and typical Lindsay fashion, I also like try to leave at the latest possible time. Like I still get there a day early, obviously, before my sessions or my weddings if they're out of state. But like I try to stay at my house for as long as humanly possible, so I'm not just like sitting in a hotel room for nothing to do forever and ever. And we break down, and everywhere. First of all, there's not a lot of like auto parts stores in that area of Colorado, let alone like anything. The closest thing we could find was a Baumgars, and they were closing in like 5 minutes. And Tucker had to like go get a handheld saw, and he's like sawing off parts of the car so that we can continue to. It was his mom's car, so I mean, at least it was his mom's car, not mine. So he's like sawing off parts of it. I still have a video actually of it. But he's like sawing off parts of this car so we can continue to drive to Manhattan. And we get into Manhattan at like 3 a.m. and the proposal's supposed to happen the next day, which would be the day because now it's 3 a.m. So the proposal's supposed to happen at like 11 a.m. or something. And I'm getting text messages from Cody, and he's like, I just decided to propose to her. So tomorrow, instead of the proposal, she doesn't know that you're coming, but I want to surprise her with an engagement session. Part of me was relieved because I was like, oh, thank God. Because like this guy had me thinking I was going to have to hide in a bush. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you have ticks in Kansas, and they scare the crap out of me. Coming from Colorado, where it is very, very dry, we don't have ticks. I mean, there's a few ticks up in the mountains, like that are on the deer, but we don't have ticks like the humid places have. So like anytime I go somewhere humid in the summer, I like literally like just like in I just like put DEET all over my body, like off deep woods DEET that like causes cancer. I'm like putting it in my mouth. I'm like, I don't want ticks on me. And then like apparently like essential oils like peppermint oil, if you put that on you, like ticks don't like that. So like Tucker says, I always smell like I murdered an elf because like a Christmas elf. So I smell like peppermint, like a lot of it. So I smell like DEET and peppermint in the summer. So if you've ever been around me in the summer in a state that's semi-humid, that is why. I don't just smell like that. It's just I'm scared of ticks. So Cody had me thinking I was gonna have to like hide in a bush for hours on end for him to propose because he wanted to propose like out in the middle of their pasture, which I roll up and their pasture is like 3,000 acres. And I'm like, you didn't clarify. You had a 3,000 acre pasture that's like 5 miles from the nearest house or road. And so luckily I didn't have to actually photograph the actual proposal. But then after we finally roll up to the engagement session, he proposed to her the day before. He has her convinced that they're going to go out on a ride or something. I don't know. And Tucker and I pull up in his mom's car that's half sawed off. It was a really good look for us. And out pops Miss Miller. And I was like, surprise! I'm here to capture your engagement photos. And she was so surprised. But about 5 minutes into our session, the rain just starts. I mean, it is gloomy, it is humid, the rain starts. And I specifically remember making a comment to these people about like the stereotypical like Kansas and tornadoes. And this was prior to any like tornado warning going off on our phones. And so they take us out into the pasture. So we have their pickup, like an aluminum trailer, and their horses are in the back of it. And and all of a sudden, there's like lightning and rain. And I'm kind of sitting in the back. I'm like, guys, I'm kind of afraid of lightning. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I hadn't just drove 12 hours to get here, 12 hours isn't exaggerated. Was it like 8 hours maybe to Manhattan from my house? I was like, if I hadn't just drove 8 hours, like I would have definitely canceled this session by now. Because I was like, and they're like, oh, it's fine. The lightning's not that far away. And like I'm looking up and the lightning is like above my freaking face. And I'm like, well, you guys also aren't holding an electronic camera. And like I was trying to convince these people that we shouldn't take pictures and we should like wait out the storm. But like we had just driven all the way out to this ginormous pasture and they were like convinced that we needed to take pictures. And so I am like freaking out. Like, I am so freaked out. Like, I was about ready to puke, honestly. I was so scared. And, like, my three biggest fears are snakes, water, and lightning. And the lightning was just popping off.
And ticks.
Those are the sound effects for this podcast episode. They're just, like, sounding off above me. And all of a sudden, I, like, go and I take one step out of the pickup. And out of their pickup, and Cody's in the back of the aluminum trailer. The aluminum trailer, I feel like, is a very key part of this story because of how much lightning there was, okay? And so Cody's in the back, and he's, like, getting the horses out, and all of a sudden, I, like, take one step out, and I'm, like, literally shaking so hard because I'm so afraid to, like, start taking pictures in this lightning storm. And I wouldn't even call it a lightning storm. I'd call it an electric storm at that point, okay? I was convinced this was how I died. Anyways, I'm scared. I take like one step out of the pickup, and by the grace of God, my phone starts going like, you know, the National Weather Service like alert. It almost sounds like a child's been kidnapped on your phone sort of deal. And so it starts going off. Tucker's phone starts going off. Their phone starts going off, and I'm like, a tornado! And I'm like so excited because this means there's no way we have to shoot in this lightning right now. Because if there hadn't been a tornado, I'm pretty sure these people would have made me take pictures of the lightning. Then like. Since that day, I've put into my contracts that if there is lightning detected within 10 miles of our session, we are canceling that session because I am not about to die. So
that is so funny.
Anyways, the tornado warnings start going off, and they're like, "Oh, we get tornado warnings all the time." And I was like, "How do you know it's tornado?" And like, "Well, you'll see it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "So what do we do?" Because we're like a long ways from your guys' house or any type of shelter. Plus, we have these horses in the back. And all of a sudden, the sky, like, maybe you'll get this as a Kansas person, the sky like, turns turquoise. And she was like, and Carly was like, yeah, that's not good. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. I didn't have to shoot in the lightning, but I might just die in this tornado. And so we're, like, going as fast as you can possibly go through, and I don't know, maybe you can explain the terrain of like north of Manhattan, Kansas, a little bit better than I can.
It's
it was
rocky.
Certainly a lot. Yeah, and it was really hilly compared to where I live in Colorado. And so we're
not in a river basin. We are hilly, rocky, the Flint Hills. It's called that for a reason.
It was not easy to drive in said pasture without a road with horses in the back of an aluminum trailer. It was not easy. And I can tell we're going faster than we should probably be going with these horses in the back. And we finally make it back to the house. It's like full on hailing, torrential downpour. Cody takes the horses and he gets them out of the trailer. They like have us pull Tucker's mom's car into one of their like sheds or whatever. And then we had to wait in the basement, and they like had like these storm radios. Like I felt like I was in Wizard of Oz with Dame Dorothy at that point in time. Like I thought this was stuff from Hollywood. I mean, living in Colorado, we get a lot of tornadoes, and I'm saying tornadoes with air quotation marks, because we get a lot that technically touch down, but they're not like big tornadoes, if that makes sense. Like you generally watch, I'll die in a tornado this year in Colorado, but they're generally like not that big of a deal. And so we spent like 2 hours in these people's basement with this creepy radio just going off the whole time. So yeah, I remember that.
The basis of the story, every time Lindsay comes to Kansas, she almost dies. So
yeah, I do. And then this will be really quick, but a wedding before that. So I was there that January. So I was in Kansas in January down by Wichita, and it was so cold. It was like -25 was the wind chill, and I was shooting an outdoor wedding. And I mean, I've grown up raising cattle and calving out in the winter, and I don't feel like my hands have ever been so close to getting frostbite in my entire life. And we also got COVID at that wedding. So that was fun. And then, almost died in a tornado that summer in Kansas. And then in Kansas this year, I shot a wedding outside of Ulysses, I think is what it's called. Ulysses. And it was 105 degrees. 105 degrees, and it was windy. And I've never felt the wind like that. It was like it's like sticking your hand in an oven, basically. Like that's what it felt like on your skin. And the venue that we were at, it was just not ideal for like indoor portraits. Like it was like dark barnwood, and it kind of looked more like it was a really pretty venue for like a guest, if that makes sense. But from a
Mhm.
photography standpoint, it was kind of a nightmare. And I was like, let's go outside to take these pictures. But of course, their portraits were scheduled for like the middle of the day, is when I do family pictures and bridal party pictures. And the sun is like directly over top. So there's like maybe like 2 feet of shade on both sides of this building. And I'm having to stand out in the sun and keep my clients up against the building into the shade, right? And so I spent a total of about 3 hours nonstop just out there doing all the family pictures, bridal party pictures, the first look, all that. And they're all in the shade. And it wasn't like super enjoyable for them in the shade. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm taking pictures and the whole camera. Like I'm like, why is everybody swaying so much? It was me. I was the one swaying, and I was like borderline about to pass out from heat exhaustion. And I've never got heat exhaustion in my whole life, and I have worked on a farm my entire life in the dead of the summer. And yeah, I was. It was not good. So don't hire me to come to Kansas. Is the moral of the story. I am terrified of Kansas. Kansas can go to heck for all I
Everyone,
care.
bring Lindsay back to Kansas. If you need her for anything, bring her to Kansas. We need to get you a good experience in Kansas, like
It
one
will
where you're
cost you
not
a
about to
million
die.
dollars. $1 million is my going rate to come to Kansas. For no less will I come to Kansas. Actually, I do have a Kansas wedding this November. Hopefully, there will be no tornadoes. And I feel like that's early enough in the winter, it won't be terribly cold. So, fingers
Knock
crossed,
on
we'll be
wood.
okay. Yeah.
Knock on wood. Knock
Yeah,
on
the
wood.
only reason
I love
I
it.
only took that session, or I only took the wedding for this November because they have a ranch in Colorado. So the agreement was we'd shoot the engagement pictures in Colorado.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. So we have touched on a lot of things. Talk a little bit about as a photographer. You decided pretty early on to sell prints of the amazing killer photos that you were getting on the feedlot and of your livestock and things like that, and now have like a full blown, like really thriving print store. And also, you and Tucker do them yourselves. So if you want to kind of talk about that process, and then also just like the whole point of diversifying your income as a photographer and kind of what that's looked like for you.
Yeah, so basically I was always taking pictures of the cattle, and I was posting them out on like on my social media and stuff for no other point than to like break up my social media feed, because I feel like back in like 2000, like 17, 18, 19, it was super important for like everybody was always like, you have to have like a cohesive feed, right? Like post a light picture and a dark picture and a light picture and a dark picture. And it was like the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now nobody gives two craps about what you post. All they care about is that one post, and not like they don't care about the like what it looks like on your page. So I was
Yeah.
taking pictures of the cattle just to like give my Instagram feed like a break, so it wasn't just like all these random people, right? And so it was like in 2017 and 18, I had a couple of local people who asked me if they were like, oh, my sister like really loves your work. She just like got a new house. Is there a possibility that I could get that picture and frame it for her to give her as like a housewarming gift? And I remember that was like one of the very first conversations I had with somebody. And they were like local, so I didn't think much of it. And I told you guys I had the Smug Mug account for when I used to like do like the sports photography and the livestock pages. Well, through Smug Mug, you can print things. So I told them, I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll upload it to my Smug Mug account. I'll have a watermark on it, but you can pick like what size you want and what like type of material you want it printed on, the whole thing. And so they bought that, and that was just like one that I sold. And I just kind of like, there was a few random people that would ask me that. I did a lot of things where I like submitted my agricultural photos to things like calendar contests. I also did like the National Corn Growers Association's contest, and that wasn't necessarily pictures of cattle, but it was just like my agricultural pictures. So my pictures started getting shared by like larger accounts, which brought more people to my account that weren't really there for they weren't really there for like the wedding or the portrait aspect. They were just there to see cool pictures of cattle and farming. And so then when COVID happened, I'm telling you guys, like I had maybe sold like 10 canvases in my entire like career for like for those 3 years where I started like posting and letting people have the options. But when COVID happened, my mom, obviously, like sessions, weddings, everything stopped for like a solid couple of months. And in Colorado, our regulations were very, very strict because of our government. They were very strict on what we could and could not do. Like if you were a business owner, like a photographer, and you were caught doing a session, basically, like you were going to be in trouble, essentially, if somebody like reported you. And so my mom saw something on 9 News, which is a Denver like station, like a news station. And one of the reporters was doing something on how COVID was going to affect small businesses. And the reporter was asking for people to send in their business information, like how COVID has impacted you, like what can viewers do to like help your business survive this time, all this, that, and the other. So like I submitted and like you had to take your phone and you had to record yourself talking so they could like put it on 9 News on the TV show, right? And like thousands of people submitted. So there was like a very slim chance of it actually getting featured in the story, like either online, on social media, or heaven forbid, on the actual like networking broadcasting show. And 9 News is like a huge station here in Colorado. Like everybody knows what they are. And I submitted, I was like, I'm a photographer and I shoot sessions and weddings for a living, and we can't do that right now. And coming off of slow season, which is like January through March, and now going into the start of wedding season, like I haven't shot a session since December, basically. So I haven't gotten paid since December. And I was banking on having all these sources of income, but now we can't because of COVID and we're shut down and all this, that, the other. And I said, I'm actually also a 5th generation beef producer, and I take pictures of my cattle and I sell them as home decor. And my story got selected to be on 9 News. And actually, the picture that's behind me was one of the pictures that I showed. And I had like my website traffic just took off after it was featured, and it just started going off. And ever since then, it's been pretty steady, and everybody got those stimulus checks and they bought pictures of cows with them. So that's what they did, and I'm very, very thankful for them.
That's awesome. And I feel like that just like really speaks to why, like a literal situation that we all experienced and went through, of why it is important that even if you think that you're going to have these sessions coming up, or we're getting out of slow season and like things are picking up again in the spring, like why it's important as a business owner to not put all of your eggs in one basket. And that's something that I've really focused on too, of like, yes, I niche down in certain aspects, but at the same time, it's like, I still keep my toe in a lot of different things. Like I started in sports photography too for my high school. I don't do that anymore. I barely do seniors anymore unless it's by request. Like I focus in weddings, engagements, and like livestock sale photos and marketing and things like that. And it is so important to not just kind of like diversify maybe what you're shooting a little bit, but also like your sources of income. So whether that be through stock photos or selling prints or just things like that, like it's super important to like not just put all of your eggs in one basket, because something like that could happen and you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs of, oh no, what do I do? And things like that. Talk a little bit about because you and Tucker make a lot of them, don't you? Like in your house?
Yeah. So
What's that look like?
it looks like me taking the pictures and managing the Shopify account, and me telling Tucker, by the way, you have to make 5 canvases today. That's what it looks like. And I'm always very specific on my social media pages. Like whenever I get on my stories and I'm like, we're making these and these canvases today. And I'm like, by we, I mean Tucker is making them and I am just bossing him around. So I'm very thankful and lucky in the fact that Tucker is very good at building things. So he is a welder by trade, but he's actually really good at woodworking. we actually have a bed in our spare bedroom, which used to be our bed in our master bedroom, and he made it the entire thing from scratch. The headboard, the base, I'm not a woodworker, I don't know, the footboard, and then it even had like pull out drawers for storage because our very first house was only like 800 square feet. So we really needed storage, and he like handcrafted this entire thing, and people still to this day will see it and they'll ask, they'll be like, oh my God, where did you get that bed frame from or that bed set from? And I'm like, Tucker made it. It's not for sale. So he is very gifted in like woodworking and building all that kind of stuff. Where me, I'm lucky when we're building fence if I can like hammer in like a staple straight or like screw, like we're putting continuous fencing up, and like half of the screws that I put in to like have the clips to hold the continuous fencing onto the posts, they're not straight at all. So I don't build the canvases, but Tucker does. But basically how it started was, and a lot of times people will message me and they'll be like, hi, I'm a photographer too. I wanna sell like pictures of my cattle. Where do you order them from? And people, this might be controversial, but like I don't love it when people ask me that, because it's like, okay, I'm betting you I spent like $3,000 minimum just figuring out for one specific product out of the 200 products I offer, figuring out where to buy it, where to order it from, the shipping costs, all that stuff. And it's just trial and error. I mean, every single product that I had, the first place I would order it from, it just wouldn't turn out. So I'd order it from another place and another place and another place. And I was getting so frustrated. And a lot, like in the beginning, we weren't making them. But then Tucker, being himself, who had a full-time job at the time, he's like, I have an idea. How about I just make them all for you on top of have my normal job? And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. Why don't we do that? And so
why don't you do that?
Yeah, I was like, how about I post that they're for sale and you just do all the work? I do take the pictures and I edit the pictures, and marketing is not an easy task by any means. But Tucker, he just was like, he wasn't happy with the quality of canvases that we were ordering in. And he's like, I could make that. So for a lot of them, I just order the raw, unstretched canvas basically, and then Tucker just completely builds them from start to finish. And then we also do like custom metal signs. We have like cattle ear tags that he makes. When he told me that he wanted to buy a plasma table, I was not happy about it because I thought it was a very stupid purchase. We pay off some credit cards and stuff, and he wanted to buy a plasma table. But luckily he did buy the plasma table, and he is the guy. He does watch like Tim the Tool Man, whatever that TV show is called. He watches that. And there is not a tool at Home Depot that Tucker does not own, except for, I'm sure you can hear me talking right now, and he's going to say that he needs more tools, and there are tools that he needs that he doesn't own. But everybody in my family, like if they need something like fixed in their house, or if they need a tool to do something, Tucker is who they call, because my brother had a hole in his drywall one time that happened to come from his fist, and he called Tucker and he's like, can you fix it? So Tucker had to go over to my brother's house and fix the drywall. And then my mom recently just got a new kitchen like stove and hood for her kitchen. And the installers like totally ripped her wallpaper. And so now Tucker has to go over there and fix it. And so like, the poor guy, he's just forced being the Miller's personal contractor for the rest of his life. He says that I'm running a sweatshop. So
that is so funny. But it's so cool that like you guys are able to do that too, and that, marrying a handyman has its perks, baby. Like it truly does. If you take anything from this episode, marry a handyman, because my fiance
first of all, you have to start stalking. You can't just, you have to stalk them at 8 years old, infiltrate the family through Facebook, and then lead up to be like, I'm going to build an entire business around you and your set of skills, and then you don't have to actually do anything. So that's the entire takeaway. But on that note, I feel like a lot of photographers, like if you're a photographer and you're listening to this episode if it's selling products. I know a lot of photographers that like go overseas. They go to like Europe and stuff, and they shoot destination weddings in Europe. And I've seen them like sell prints that they take of like Rome and the cathedrals in Italy and this, that, and the other, stuff we don't have here for us to take pictures of. Basically, they sell pictures of that, or they sell their presets. They make their own presets and they sell their presets, or they sell educational content, or they sell downloadable printables or templates or something. I feel like there's constant, and so a lot of people sell like their own merch that says like Miss Miller's Photography or something. I don't personally do that. I don't sell stuff that says Miss Miller's Photography on it. I'll sell stuff that says like funny stuff, like about cows, but I don't sell things that say Miss Miller's Photography on them. But I feel like as a photographer, like especially ever since COVID happened, I can, for one, say that I was very naive in thinking that I could be a photographer forever, and I would always have this constant like form of income coming in with people wanting to do sessions and weddings. And when something happens that's outside of your control, it's really important to have that other stuff to fall back on to be that additional source of income, basically. And I think it's just figuring out what works for you. Because for me, like the educational stuff, I've tried to tap into it, and it does not work for me. Like it's not my forte, it's not my thing. And so I stick to selling the prints. Whereas some people, like maybe they wanted to be a teacher previously, and now they can teach people how to be a photographer, and that works out well for them. But for me, the print business really also came from, for those 4 years that we spent away from the farm, I thought that I was going to be an interior designer. I thought that was going to be my job. And I took interior design classes at my high school. And so kind of like taking my agricultural background mixed with interior design, I think is how I came up with all of the decor options that we have, other than just here's a printable picture for these cows.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. It's so crazy how like one little event that happened in your life just kind of cascades, and you have like an entire business, and your entire life is now built around just one little thing. That if it had gone differently, if your mom hadn't have gotten that camera, if you hadn't have taken those football photos, if you hadn't have done like XYZ, kind of what that would have looked like. And you might be a veterinarian right now instead of having a amazing and wonderful thriving business able to capture people's memories and just like really provide to an industry that I personally love how you provide like photos that are really phenomenal that people outside of ag can buy, that they're not buying them from Hobby Lobby type of thing. Like you are
Yeah.
supporting a small business, and you are supporting someone who like, these are like genuine photos, really cool photos, and not just like the general like photo of a Highland cow. That was
Yeah.
another red flag, that if I walked into your house in college and you had that Highland cow photo, I knew we weren't going to be friends.
I have Highland cow photos, but they are my actual registered Highlands. So
Not Highland cow photos are cool. The traditional, like cliche Highland cow photo that is from Hobby Lobby
yeah.
that, oh my gosh, everyone had.
Well,
But
and on that note too, like I will say my biggest pet peeve, and I apologize in advance to anybody who has made it this far, and they are those people who like to do like the Amazon hauls, the Dukes video, the this is just the haul videos, and like the entire point of the video is like how can you find something that is cheaper, that is a knockoff of something that is handmade, made in America, made with love, made by an
mm-hmm.
actual family behind the business. That just absolutely disgusts me. Like, I'm not saying that you have to spend $300 to decorate one wall in your house. That's not what I'm trying to insinuate at all. But you should not be actively trying to rip off small businesses and like finding the Amazon dupe that only costs you $50 for on Miss Miller's Photography's website cost you $150, because I literally had firsthand experience from a big box store who reached out to me in 2021. And the picture that's behind me was actually one of the pictures that they wanted to carry in their stores. And when they first reached out to me about it, I was so excited. I was literally so excited. I was like, this is an awesome opportunity. I'll be able to sell, like, I mean, think about a big box store. They wanted to start by carrying it in 5 of their branches that were more like, they wanted to carry it in the Loveland branch and a Billings, Montana branch, just like they're more like Loveland is in Colorado for anybody who doesn't know. They wanted to carry it in their more like agricultural communities, if that makes sense. Because they thought, and this was around the time Yellowstone was like really popping off and people really were into the whole Western thing, you know. And so the more we got to talking, I was like, okay, well, this is what I could do because these bad boys behind me, they're not just expensive because I want to jack the price up on you. They cost a lot of money to make. They cost a lot of money to ship. They cost a lot of money to get the packaging material to like safely transport them from me to you. Like they're not cheap. Like my UPS man actually hates when I tell him that I have some of these for him to pick up because it like takes up the entire UPS freaking truck. And when I started talking to this big box store, obviously for like legal reasons, I can't like say what store it was because I don't want to get sued by any means. Don't sue me. I know nothing about legal. But they didn't even want to purchase enough of the product to even like justify my time, and they wanted to get like you have your wholesale price and they wanted literally like a fourth of what wholesale price was. I'm like, I can't even manufacture them for that price. And they basically told me, they came to me and they told me it's that price or it's nothing. Like they weren't willing to work with me at all. I was obviously not going to charge them full price. I was going to give them wholesale pricing. I was willing to like have a little bit of negotiation on the wholesale pricing because obviously like anybody who's in the boutique industry and they've met like a minimum order quantity, like you realize like maybe you're only making $5 on this product, but you're selling 100 of them. So like in the long term, like it adds up and it works out. But if you're only making $5 on it and you only sell 20 of them, like that's not really, that being 20 is being generous. That's not really worth my time. Like
Yeah.
I think they said they wanted one for each branch. So it was like I was gonna make like $0 for 5 branches to carry one. And I was like, and they're like, and if those sell, then we'll place an order of 100. And I was like, how about no?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah. So like when you're buying from those big box stores, just know that they are completely, excuse my language, but screwing over the artists and the small businesses that make them. And if they can't get them cheap from me, they're gonna have somebody else make them cheaper, somebody overseas make them, and like it's just it really, really sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah,
So
consumerism and just like the way that the world works really kind of sucks. Buy American, buy US made, buy from small businesses. Like,
buy
even
from
if,
Tucker's Garage.
yes, exactly. Like, even if it costs you a little bit more in the upfront, like, you are literally providing someone a meal with that money. Like, someone is
Yeah.
living off of that, and it's not just going to like a big box store that it's just going into nothingness. It feels like you're truly making an impact with that money. So like shop small, support your small businesses, and yeah, that's phenomenal. Well, we have talked so much today about so many cool things, and I am so happy. I just want to kind of like start to end the episode with I have 3 different questions. And so the first one is how do you see God kind of moving in your life or in your business right now? Is there anything like super exciting on that part, or just like kind of how do you see him in your life and in your business right now?
So I will say that in Tucker and I's personal life, we have had a lot of tragedy. There's the word I'm looking for. Edit that correctly. We've had a lot of tragedy and adversity that we've had to come over in the last 2 years. A lot of things that were unexpected through the loss of a parent is not easy for anybody. And the last 2 years have been, and I don't say that to make it like a sob story or poor us or anything along those lines, because so many people deal with, illness and losing a loved one unexpectedly and far worse things. I totally understand that. But we have faced more trials in the last 2 years than most people will face until they might be 50 years old. And, we're not even, well, Tucker, he's old now, but I'm not even out of my 20s. So I can officially say Tucker's out of his 20s, but I'm not even out of my 20s. And I think when you're at your lowest of lows is when you really start to kind of is when you have to just have the faith that everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And that everything, I've just come to learn that everything is outside of my control. And I've really started to through our experiences, learn that if something doesn't work out, that's God's plan, that's a purpose, that's a reason. And maybe if you don't see it right now, it's for something later on. And it's kind of confusing how I explain it, but I'm just saying the amount of crap basically that we have been put through in the last 2 years, that without having faith that everything is going to eventually be okay, I don't know where we would be, because it's been difficult to say the least. But I feel like God puts certain people in your life that are there to help you through and help you see that everything's going to be okay. And that doesn't mean that there's not going to be people in your life that, are there for the wrong reasons. There's definitely people that will test your faith and will test your sanity, for a lack of a better term. But the best thing is just to not look at the negatives and just look at the people who are there for you and who have been there for you to lean on in a time of tragedy, and just know that God put them in your life for a reason and put different paths in your life for a reason, and just follow them. That's the biggest thing. Is literally we were trying to buy some cows at the sale barn the other day, and I did not have the money to be buying these cows, and they went for $3,900 a head, and I was that was God's way of telling me, Lindsay, no, this is not what you should be doing right now. So just listen to the signs.
Don't be like Lindsay and try to buy cows that you shouldn't be buying. Walk the correct path. All of those
When you
things.
need to pay your taxes, do not buy cows.
Small business owners, you get it. Ranchers, you get it. We all hate tax season. I just filed my taxes and I hate it. I reached out to my tax person and I was like, have fun with this. Let me know how much I owe the government. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to have a kid so I owe less money. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, tell my fiance, be like, hey, I know we said we were going to wait a few years, but for tax purposes, I kind of need us to pop some out because we're getting screwed right now. Except on your part, you need to adopt a 15-year-old. That way you don't have to deal with the potty training and the child feces.
That only gives me 3 years of tax write-off, so I don't. Pros, cons, I don't know.
Yeah, then you got all the rest of their life to deal with them still too.
I really feel like cattle should be more of a tax write-off than what they already are for an agricultural business, because I feel like the IRS truly does not know how much of a pain in the butt they are. They depend on me so much more than a human child would. At least a human child, by the time it's 5, I could be go get yourself a fruit roll-up out of the pantry to feed you. You can train them, You can't train cattle to give themselves food and water in the middle of a snowstorm. I got to do stuff. Really should be more of a dependent.
Exactly. They are dependent.
I need them to be a dependent.
Yes. If we could have the hundreds of dependents, or maybe not even hundreds, just let us put a few on there, because they are very dependent. They take more than the kids half the times. I know my dad, when we were growing up, he was always the cows got priority over us kids, in the first place. So, I mean, I feel like they kind of are. They're the more important kids. They're the youngest kid in the family that gets spoiled and gets to eat first. So, I love it. IRS, if you're listening, cattle need to be better on tax write-offs. And I'm sure all the ranchers can probably agree.
I hope the IRS is never listening to me, honestly. I'm so scared.
Honestly though. Let's hope that they're not listening. Next question is, where do you kind of see yourself? So it's two questions, but it's like a two-parter, same question, whatever. You know what I mean? Where do you see yourself going in the next year? And then where is Miss Miller's photography going in the next year? So you personally, what are your goals, aspirations? What's your plans for the rest of the year? And then kind of your business too.
I touched on how the last 2 years have been really, really difficult for us due to things that were outside of our control, all that stuff. So the last 2 years have kind of just been trying to keep our heads above water, basically, because of all of the emotional stuff we've been dealing with in our family. But I think this year my biggest goal is to actually go back to my roots of like shooting sessions, shooting things that are stuff that like I want to do, meaning like I still want to go and shoot a wedding, don't get me wrong. Like that's my business, that's my job, that's who I am. But like it has been at least 2 years since I have actually like put on, I hate to call them like a styled shoot. I'm starting to call them more like creative sessions, creative building sessions, because like I've been in so much of a rut of like, I feel like I'm just working for people instead of like actually helping them create like these really like artistic photos or really like memorable photos. And I really, really want to focus on things this year. Now, don't get me wrong. You can't just come to me and email me and say, Lindsay, shoot my session for free, because I still have to pay for my cows to eat hay. So that can't happen. However, I want to focus on doing some sessions that are like just things that I have complete creative control over, because normally when somebody hires you, like they're deciding what they're going to wear. They're deciding what location we're going to use. As a photographer, you can kind of like point them in the right direction. You can be like, maybe we shouldn't wear like neon green to our session. Maybe just think about that for a second. But in the middle of January, I don't know. But it's like doing things that are what fuels my creativity, because I have definitely seen the impacts of just like work constantly, feeling like all you're doing is just trying to keep your head above water and just, doing it because it's your job. I know it's my job at the end of the day, but I still want to do creative stuff. And I feel like as photographers, if we're not being creative, then we're doing like a disservice to our clients, because we're just so burnt out and overworked. So I kind of want to just focus more on that. So right now I'm planning to do, hopefully if I can find the right fit, I want to do like a creative maternity session, like a Western maternity session. Possibly talking right now with a exclusive dress that is provided by a like rental gown company, to possibly do a session like featuring their dress. And again, that's just collaborative work and just kind of doing some stuff like that. For the future of Miss Miller's photography, I know this might come as a shock, but there's no way I'm going to be shooting weddings when I'm 50 years old. So we're going to have to figure something else out, because I doubt that somebody's going to hire a 50-year-old wedding photographer unless I can really try to stay relevant on TikTok, which I don't foresee happening, to be honest.
What, you don't see yourself being one of those like older influencers? I don't want to like say 50-year-old or 60-year-old mom, if you're listening to this, you are not old, you're beautiful, I love you. But like one of those like, okay, like 70-year-olds that are like the granny TikTokers, like you don't want to be one of those?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at some point I could definitely be a funny grandma TikToker, but I feel like I have like a space in between there before I get on AARP that I need to like figure out that. So I need to figure that little portion out. So basically for the future of Miss Miller's photography, just still like working on Western decor. This has actually nothing to do with Miss Miller's photography, but I'm trying to convince Tucker that on top of working his Ag News radio business and building all the prints for Miss Miller's photography and being my second shooter and being the majority of having to haul hay for the cows, that he should also open a cafe in Briggsdale and serve breakfast there. So that's not really a plan for me, but I would like to go there and eat breakfast. So
I love that.
He's already making the breakfast for me, but like I just feel like Briggsdale needs somewhere to eat because the population of 7 people here.
Tell him that, fun fact for everyone listening, my stepmom lives like 20 minutes from Lindsay. And so tell him that every time I'm in Colorado, I will be visiting this diner, and I'm going to be the first to sign the petition saying that he needs to do so, because our favorite food places consist of a tiny Mexican restaurant in Greeley, and a gas station actually that has a Mexican restaurant like in the gas station. It's not as ghetto as it sounds, but they have really good burritos. Don't knock it till you try it. I was at first was like, I'm not eating a gas station burrito. This sensitive stomach over here, no thank you. And then I experienced it. I was like, okay, I understand why we're eating gas station burritos. But tell him if he opens that, I will fly out to Colorado and I will be his first customer. Absolutely. So Tucker, yes, we need this in our lives.
I definitely think that there needs to be a Tucker Almer cafe. He wants to call it the Tumbleweed Cafe, which I said, why? Because nobody likes tumbleweeds. That's not good marketing. But he's like, people can say, I'm going down to the Tumbleweed. I don't know. Like, that sounds like a bar. I don't like that. But
it is a bar, and it's a bar in Stillwater. And so us, like, older people could be like, hey, we're going to the Tumbleweed, except we're going to the Tumbleweed in Colorado, not the Tumbleweed in Oklahoma.
We just need a new name. We're not doing the Tumbleweed. And then I really, really want to open a wedding venue out in Breaksdale. So that is a possibility, but that is like obviously a lot of permits and a lot of, that. That's also why I have my registered herd of Scottish Highlands, because actually where I took the picture that's behind me of the Longhorn, that was actually at a wedding venue. And like, I'm one of the few photographers that actually gets full reign to just go down there and take pictures with their cattle, because the caretaker of the venue, she knows that, like, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to cattle, and I'm not going to get kebabbed by a longhorn out there like most photographers would. Like, normally when like people book this venue, they have to have the caretaker, the manager of the ranch go down there with them and like supervise them so they don't do dumb crap with the cattle, basically. And I'm one of the few photographers who just gets to go down there willy-nilly with my clients as I please, sort of deal. But this venue gave me the idea. I was like, okay, they have longhorns. What if I have Scottish Highlands and we have them at our wedding venue? So if you want to get married in 2030, I assume our wedding venue will be built by then, and we will have a lot more Highlands than our current numbers. And you can get married and take home a Highland all in one day. But I will warn you,
that's a pretty cool deal. That's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah. And so that's a plan. And then what else? Oh, and I mean, we just always have our cattle. That's a business too. They're a big headache, and I spend a lot of money on them. I spend more money than I make on them a lot of times, but because I'm always trying to buy more. That's the problem.
Lindsay spends too much time at the sale barn.
I do. I actually saw my grandpa at the sale barn this weekend. We were both buying hay, and he told me, because the cattle market's really good right now, he's like, I hate to buy them, but I love to sell them. And I'm like, I love to buy them, but I hate to sell them. So yeah, that's what the future holds. And shout out to any of you brides getting married in 2030. Hit me up. You can come to the Tumbleweed Cafe for breakfast and get married at noon at Lindsay's wedding venue with the Scottish Highlands. And you can pet Highlands while you're there. So those are the plans.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I love all of it. I love all of it. Thank you so much for all of our discussion today and conversation and everything. Where can people find you?
The best place to find me is on social media. Well, actually, you can go to missmillersphotography.com and it will link you to all of my social medias, because I know sometimes it's hard to find people on social media. But I'm under Miss Miller's Photography on Facebook, on Instagram, and then Miss Miller's Photo on TikTok, because stupid TikTok doesn't give me enough characters to put in photography at the end of my username. Please, TikTok, if you're listening, give me more characters in my username so I can put Miss Miller's Photography. So it's just Miss Miller's Photo. And you can find me in northern Colorado. I am available to travel outside of Colorado, just not Kansas. So
just not Kansas.
Yeah.
Hey, Kansas is getting less tornadoes now. Okay. It's been better. It's been
You still
better.
have the negative. I mean, we have negative temperatures in Colorado, but like I've never been unlucky enough to have to shoot in them. And then also the 105-degree heat. Like, no, thank you. And
The
also
humidity
Kansas.
here is no joke.
Yeah, yeah, Kansas has humidity. And if you ever want to know what heaven feels like, come to Colorado because we don't have humidity. So, except for in the
Whenever my
mornings.
yes,
And
whenever my
also,
stepmom comes to visit, she's always like, "I hate it here." Like her
yeah,
hair, she's like, "I can never do my hair." She's like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like I'm dying." So
yeah.
you're not alone.
I
You're
uh,
not alone.
I start to break out when I go. I one time shot a wedding in South Alabama in the middle of July, and I start to break out because there's so much like moisture on my face, and my skin doesn't know what to do with it. It's so dry in Colorado that your hands start to bleed after you wash them one time, like they crack open. It's so dry in Colorado that if you leave your bread, like in the morning, if you want to make toast, you have to immediately like wrap up your bread and put the little zip tie back on it because it will like dry out your bread. And yeah, it's very dry. We get actually, you know, like how when snow blows, it like makes a drift. We get drifts of sand. Like the sand blows so much that like the sand will start to make drifts and
Oh
stuff.
my gosh,
So yeah, it's really
that's
fun. But
crazy.
on the plus side, when you said Colorado, you said it right. So to end the episode, we need to teach people how to say Colorado. You say Colorado, like rad.
Yeah,
If
not
anybody says
Colorado.
Colorado, if I ever hear someone say Colorado, immediately, no, we're not friends. I can't with you.
Yeah, no. Immediately no. It's just it's up there with the screenshotting photos with the watermarks. You're out of here. You're
Yes.
cut off.
Yes. If you use
You're like
watermark
Lindsay's Facebook
images,
friends.
yes. If you use watermark images or if you have the big box store Highland cow pictures, we cannot be friends. And if you say Colorado, I'm immediately unfollowing you. Immediately.
Immediately no.
There's
That
a
is
lot
so
of
funny.
people there's a lot of people who live in Colorado that are not from here and they all say it wrong and immediately I just want to run them off the road rage.
Like you have virtual
So
road rage. Goodbye.
we do not. You
Go.
can come here to visit. You cannot come here and move here. Please not.
That is so funny. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I truly appreciate it. And I know our guests got so much good info out of here. And there's so many amazing nuggets of information. Make sure you go follow Lindsay. I will link everything in the show notes. And till next time, friends, see ya.